Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the FamVestor Podcast. I'm your host, Sonny Burns.
And I'm your co-host, Sunmarie Burns.
So today we are talking about our 14-day, or it was actually 16-day adventure around the Grand Circle, which is a lot of the Utah national parks. We even went into Colorado and left from Las Vegas, so we'll be diving into that. But before we do, we want to give you some exciting updates from the week. A lot of excitement the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, we've had a lot going on.
The boys just completed their first triathlon in Rumsford, New Jersey, near Sandy Hook. It was a really good time. You know, they had a 75-meter swim, which was pretty cool. Alvin had a swim buddy that kind of swam with him, so that was cool.
Alvin's our younger one, so he's only 4, and he's not proficient at swimming, so he had floaties and an assistant.
Right.
But it was really nice that they, allowed that.
Yeah, they allowed floaties,
ones.
They allowed training wheels, and it was just so well run. I was very happy, very impressed. And so he was the youngest participant to race. There was probably like 200 kids that day, but he was the youngest. There was only one 5-year-old as well. So he was 4, and there was a 5-year-old, and then there was a couple 6-year-olds and mostly 8-year-olds.
Right.
And then, so there was a category from 4 to 8. And then 9 to 14 was the other category of racers. But for the 4 to 8, they did a 75-meter swim, and then they did a 2.25 mile bike ride, which I felt was pretty long, actually. And then a really short run. I think they said it was a half-mile run. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that was a lot of excitement there. The boys are very proud of themselves. They got a medal. And I was proud of them. They did the whole thing.
They did. They were champs. And the swim wasn't in a pool or anything. It was right in the bay, I guess. That's a bay. So definitely an experience for the kids. I was nervous that Alvin would get scared and not complete it, but he was a champ. So was Valen, our older one. And it was just a really positive experience, where they were introduced to this new sport of triathloning, and I think they had a really overall great time, and they're looking forward to the next one they can do. Right.
Yeah. And we had been training, their New Year's goal to run a half mile for Alvin, mile for Valen. They did that back in February, and then the week prior to the triathlon, I had them swim in our little lake there, and then jump on their bikes, do a mile, and then run a little bit. So they had some prep time there. But yeah, no, it went really well. I was very happy.
Yeah. Yeah,
and they had their sign up for another one come September, and that one I'll be doing. So they did the triathlon before I did, so good on them.
Yeah.
Also this week we took our sailboat out. So we bought the sailboat. It's a Sunfish, so it's the smallest sailboat you can buy, like 14-footer. You can only really
put
one
person.
Yeah, and we took that out this week. Got an instructor there, and he taught us how to use it because we bought it in the winter time for like $800. From Staten Island. That was a chore getting it on the minivan and lugging it back. But we're excited to have some fun.
It was fun to see it on the water, and you learning how to steer it and sail it. It was really cool. You put a lot of love into it, waxing it, and varnishing the wooden parts of it.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. New sport in the family.
And we bought kayaks, little $100 kayaks, for the boys for Christmas, and we got to use them this past 2 weeks. So they've been going out on those. That's been pretty cool. I bought my own kayak too. And I had the paddle boat out.
Honestly was thinking they were too young for kayaks, but our 6-year-old is handling it really well. Able to row himself and steer himself. And our little guy, we bungee cord him to the grown-up kayak so that he doesn't drift away.
But he'll get it soon enough. I'm sure
will,
2 or 3 more times and he'll get it.
You guys, we can all do it together. So that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of excitement.
They love it.
And then tomorrow, or on 2 days from this recording, we embark on a bike packing trip. So hopefully only good news there. It's a little bit of a stretch, but we're trying to do 100 miles in 3 days from New Paltz, New York, all the way back to my parents' house in Moonachie, New Jersey. So we'll see how that goes.
See if we do the full 100 miles.
Right. If you don't hear back, it didn't go well. Anyway, with that, let's get to the show.
You're listening to the FamVestor Podcast. If you're looking to raise your family with intention, gain financial independence, and live a life of true freedom, you're in the right place. Join us as we explore together how to create thriving families, because strong families are the cornerstone for a world at peace.
So welcome back, everyone. We're talking today about our 17-day trip all around Utah's national parks, hitting 4 states actually: Arizona, Utah, Nevada, Colorado, and New Mexico. So that's 5 states. But yeah, we arrived in Las Vegas from Newark Airport. And actually, let me share a map. And I'm going to be showing videos, so if you guys are watching on YouTube, you'll benefit from the video footage there. But yeah, we arrived in Las Vegas, and actually our first stop was the Grand Canyon National Park. Actually, before we even did that, we spent 2 days with a friend in Las Vegas. We were originally going to only spend 1 day, but we ended up canceling one night in the Grand Canyons to spend one more day with them since the kids were having so much fun.
They persuaded us. But, on the plus side, we got to check out a park we hadn't really planned to check out, which was
Red Rock Canyon.
Red Rocks Canyon.
Oh, yeah. So that was our very first stop in Las Vegas. We went to Red Rock Canyon, which is a national park. No, it's not national.
It is.
It's like a national recreation area or something.
Yeah.
So from there, we went to Grand Canyon, camped there at Mather Campground. And then from there, we drove another, so it was 5 hours from Las Vegas to Grand Canyon, and another 5 hours to Mesa Verde National Park. And we weren't able to get a campsite there, right in the national park itself. Everywhere else, we kind of got inside a state park or a national park, but that was the only private campground we went to, a KOA in Mesa Verde, right outside Mesa Verde. It was Mesa Verde KOA. And then from there, we went to Moab, Utah, which was an awesome place, probably my favorite place. Yeah. And from there, we traveled day trips to Arches National Park and Canyonlands National Park.
We stayed at a place called the Sand Flats, which was a county park, I believe.
Yeah, but it was so
county
cool.
Recreation
It was
area.
Such an awesome
Very
place.
Unique place.
It was a first come, first serve. That was one of 2 first come, first serve places we went to. After that, we went to Goblin Valley State Park, which was also a very unique place, and one of our favorite hikes was right around there.
Mm-hmm. Probably also one of the more remote places we stayed.
Yeah. We kind of made a mistake of not buying any groceries when we went there, and then only to find that the nearest grocery store was an hour in either direction. Right. So 2-hour round trip.
We should have picked up groceries on our way there, but
yes. So a lot of tips like that will be coming on this podcast. And then we went to Capitol Reef National Park, which was And then from there we went to Kodachrome State Park, which was pretty cool too. And then Bryce Canyon National Park, which was really awesome. We really liked Bryce. And then we ended our trip in Zion National Park, and then we went back home from Las Vegas. Spent the last night in a hotel after 14 days of back-to-back camping in all these campgrounds, a lot of them without showers. So
yes.
It was a nice...
It was refreshing to have a soft bed and a heated room or air-conditioned room and a shower of your very own.
Right. So this is a little layout of our trip. Day 1, we flew from Newark to Las Vegas. Day 2, we were supposed to stay in the Grand Canyons, but instead we... stayed over a friend's house, and then we went to the Grand Canyons, and then we went to Mesa Verde, and then here's kind of just our itinerary all along. But 8 different campsites we went to, so a lot of changeovers during that time.
In a short amount of time, right?
Yes.
So we'll talk about that too. We'll talk about our experience camping through this journey with 3 little ones, and how that was for us, switching sites every couple of days. It was quite an experience.
Yeah. And I'm going to start playing a video in the, maybe I'll minimize us, and I'll play a video in the bottom right corner, and you guys can kind of see a video of our journey, just some of the highlights that we touched on. But basically, this is kind of going to be talking about if you wanted to, do a trip like this for yourselves. It'll be really useful. Or even if you just want, we're going to give a lot of tips on camping, backpacking, traveling with little ones, traveling on airplanes, things of that nature.
Right.
Yeah, so let's start with preparation, I guess, for this trip. It's been something, we talked about national parks, we talked about road trips for a long time, but I think we didn't seriously start planning this until the new year, right around February, March. So about 3 or 4 months before we left. I kind of wish we had started planning like 6 months ahead of time. I feel like we did have a couple, trouble booking sites. Like 2 of those sites I told you, the Sand Flats and Zion, where we had to do first come first serve. But if we had booked like 6 months in advance, I think we could have had reservations and not had to been nervous about whether we would have gotten a site or not.
Right.
Actually, that includes Bryce too. I think that one was also first come first serve.
It's interesting because I, prior to this trip, didn't know that it was actually so hard to secure campsites in these national parks. I figured, there'll always be openings. It couldn't possibly be that many people to fill these parks, But to our surprise, it's actually very competitive to get a spot. So if you are planning to visit these more popular national parks, it's really important to do your research and figure out, when do the campsites go up for lottery? Is that what it is basically? And you have to log into the system and you have to book it right away. Right. And if you don't book it exactly at 10 a.m. is it?
Well, it depends on the place. Like some are 10 a.m., some are 8 a.m. Like we just booked Florida for 2022, and it was the Florida Keys, so those are super hot items, and they only release the dates 11 months in advance. So we had to book that spot 11 months to the day in advance at 8 a.m. in the morning. We have to be on and trying to reserve, and it's a mad rush. The spots, like all 60 sites,
vanish within
30 seconds. 30 seconds, they're gone.
Yep. And it was very similar with a lot of these national parks too. Even some of them you have to book 3 months in advance. Some you have to book 1 month in advance. Some you have to book 2 weeks in advance to the day, and you have to be sitting at your computer ready to try to reserve that spot before it gets scooped away. So I had no idea that this was the way it goes. I just found that very interesting. So if you are thinking to do this kind of trip and visit these popular sites, definitely do your research into booking the campsites, because it's not that simple.
And it's not just campsites. I guess specifically I'm thinking about Zion, where you had to book the shuttles too. And Zion was interesting because it had a 6 month in advance reservation for one campground, I think the Watchman campground. But then South Campground, it had a 14-day beforehand reservation. So they opened up dates 14 days ahead of time. So, 14 days before our trip started, I had to book that, and I was luckily able to book it. It was hard too. Like the spots went out like this. One tip though is wait 15 minutes after, if we have to book at 10, wait till 10:15, because it only lasts in people's shopping carts for 15 minutes.
And if for some reason someone doesn't complete their checkout,
it goes back
into the queue, and you have another chance to secure spots. If you don't
get
it exactly at 10, you get another chance at 10:15.
So that's how we ended up getting it right at 10:15 at that second go around. Right. And that's how we got the Florida one too. We didn't get it right at 8, we got it at 8:15. Yeah. So good tip for you guys if you're booking reservations.
Not all is lost if you don't get it exactly on the first try.
Yeah, so we got that one, and then the shuttles we didn't even know about until we got there, really. Yeah. But that one the shuttles, because you can't take your car to all the different trailheads within Zion. They restricted to shuttles, and with COVID going on, it was super crazy.
The shuttles were only allowing 14 people on the shuttles.
Yeah, like 30% capacity, the normal.
So it was, you had to.
Anyway, we won't go into that so much for this podcast, but just be aware of those.
But you had to book your shuttle tickets for a very specific time for the very next day. And so you had to, at 5 p.m., go on your computer and try to book these shuttle tickets, which were extremely hard to do. We secured one shuttle during our, how many?
3 days,
3 days
there,
we were
and
there.
We tried multiple times.
We really tried. Reception isn't that great either, so that was challenging. But the other option that a lot of people opt for in Zion is renting bikes, and that's something that was a lot more feasible considering the limitations on the shuttles. So we ended up doing that.
So I did want to talk real quick about when we did the trip. It was in May, so I think things were a lot less crowded than normal. You know, it was early May, May 7th. College hadn't even gotten out. Towards the latter end of our trip, we did go to Zion, which is definitely one of the more popular places, and we saw crowds then. But I feel like prior to Zion, we didn't really see crowds too much.
Right.
All the first come first serve places we went to, no problems at all. You know, the Sand Flats in Utah, they had 120 sites. And, you know, there was a lot of openings. I wouldn't have been worried getting there anytime. I think even like Saturday and Sunday. Were we there? No, we weren't there Saturday and Sunday. So we were there midweek. So that could be why also didn't seem so busy. And then Bryce, you know, I got up really early in the morning to go and it wasn't full. I think it did fill up, though, in the afternoons at Bryce. First come, first serve lot. So something to consider if you're doing the first come first serve stuff.
Yeah.
Try to book in.
Yeah, summer can get really crowded because of the school holidays, as well as the weather being pretty extreme. You know, very hot days, and yeah. So that's why we chose spring and May. Perhaps even April would have been nice, but May was kind of good because we had warm days. For the most part, it was pretty temperate.
Yeah, but book in advance if you can. Okay, and next we want to talk about traveling with gear and car seats. So car seats we decided to bring. We didn't want to drive because it's a 35-hour drive to the Grand Canyons from New Jersey. So we flew to Las Vegas and we rented an SUV there. Yeah. Fox Rental Cars, which has terrible ratings, but I thought the experience was actually pretty pleasant.
Yeah, it was pretty seamless.
No wait lines. Car was fine.
We'd recommend them from our experience.
And they were like half the price of everyone else.
If you're going to do a trip like this, I highly recommend you do rent a SUV or four-wheel drive.
Yeah.
A lot of the roads in many of these places are not paved. They're more like packed gravel roads.
Right. You can kind of avoid them for the most part. I guess some
not even because within a lot of the national parks, their road systems are gravel.
Right.
Like
so you could
Capitol Reef, you're traveling on gravel.
We could have not gone there if we wanted to.
But you are limiting yourself in that way. It is super helpful to have four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive in a larger vehicle. Yeah. Most of the
really cool trails we went to were you had to take dirt paths to get to them. And some of them were pretty rocky. Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely something to consider. But as many of you are aware, we've shared this before, you know, car seats check for free. So we decided to bring the car seats rather than paying $8 a day per car seat at most rental companies. They don't count towards
your luggage.
Yeah. So we did that. I had the United Explorer card, so we actually checked 2 bags. With the United Explorer card, I got a checked bag, and one of my passengers on my flight would get a checked bag too. So we got 2 free checked bags. So that's we did 2 checked bags and we did 3 carry-on bags, and that was the extent of our luggage. We had to take sleeping bags, we had to take tents. We took a pillow even.
We did because I like my pillow. A good pillow. And if I'm gonna camp, I need my pillow.
Wait, no, we didn't. We brought blow-up pillows, but we bought 2 pillows at Walmart. So like the day we arrived, I went to Walmart, bought a cast iron pan, bought skewers, bought a knife, bought tongs, bought 2 pillows, bought some other necessities, fire starters, lighters, things I couldn't bring on the plane or were too bulky or too heavy.
No,
and
we did bring one of my pillows.
Okay, I think, we did bring one pillow. Where did we put that?
Because I'm a princess and I need it.
And we bought 2 extra pillows because you need a leg pillow.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, so all that, camping mats too, headlamps. What else did we bring?
The sleeping bags. We brought sleeping bag for everyone. For our toddler who is used to being in her own crib at home, we bought this portable pop-up crib. And basically it has like a little mat under it, and it's this little pop-up mesh tent that zips closed, and it just kind of keeps her in one area because we found that she would not settle down if we tried to sleep all together in one place. It was too exciting for her. So having this little portable crib that folded up into, you know, this nice lightweight package was actually really helpful for this trip.
Yeah.
What else did we bring? We brought our Camelback
Oh yeah, Camelback water
bottles.
pouch. That's what we took on majority of our hikes and some of our bike rides. Holds almost a gallon of water in there, and all the kids can drink from the little bite valve there.
Yeah, so that was super useful. As far as cooking gear, we bought a lot of it.
Most of it was bought at Walmart,
because it's very heavy and it's just cumbersome.
Yeah.
No sense in lugging that around on an airplane. It was just something that we decided early on for a cast iron pot and our grill basket. Let's just pick it up while we're there. They're not super expensive items. Also, the cooler that we were going to use during our trip, we picked up at Walmart as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And most of every breakfast we cooked except for one. And we cooked some lunches, almost all the dinners we went out for. We did a lot more eating out than I thought we were going to, actually. But we did cook maybe 40% of the time.
All of our breakfasts and a lot of our dinners. Not all of
dinners,
them,
lunches.
Dinners. Lunches, we were usually on the trail.
Oh, maybe that's right. Okay.
Or eating out.
There's our breakfast, if you're looking on the video, at Denny's. It was so cold that day. It dropped to 32 degrees.
That's the one breakfast we didn't make.
Right, because it was just so cold. We needed to get out of there and went to
up in the
Denny's. And that was very, very enjoyable.
Yeah.
When I'd been planning the trip, I don't know why, but I didn't see the cold weather. I think I checked 3 different locations within our stay all along Utah, and it just didn't seem to be that cold. Like I thought like the lowest we were going to see was 50, but at least 2 or 3 nights it dropped to 32 degrees, and we weren't quite prepared for it. It was fine. You know, I think we brought Kaylee into our sleeping bag. We have like a combined double sleeping bag. So she was just in between us warming up because it was kind of too cold, we thought, for her on her
own space. Yeah, it was pretty chilly. So, you know, even if you're going in warm months, you know, a lot of the days were 85 degrees and hot. Some of the campgrounds got up to 100, like Goblin Valley. But at night, because it's a desert climate, the temperatures really sink quickly because there's nothing to retain the heat out there.
It was surprisingly cold our whole trip. Like we left New Jersey on like, it was a heat wave. It was all like 90-degree days. So I'm like, oh, we're going to Las Vegas. It's only going to be hotter. But it really wasn't. I'd say on average it was in like the high 70s. Yeah. But then the nights, it got cold.
I definitely recommend that you bring a lightweight jacket on a trip like this,
right.
Or at least a windbreaker, because, you know, there is no humidity out in these desert climates. So even if it's a 90-degree day and the sun is really baking you, there's this cool breeze that may blow through the canyons and the valleys, and it just gives you a chill, and your body temperature is just going from hot to cold, hot to cold. It's hard to regulate, and I found that a little bit overwhelming sometimes, and just having a jacket to block that cold wind really was helpful to have. So I recommend that. In regards to clothing, we packed about
3 sets, 4 sets?
I think 5. We had about 5 sets of clothes for the children, at least.
Was that too much or too little?
We had to do a washing halfway through the trip, and honestly speaking, I think we should have had a little bit more clothes than we had because it's so dusty out there. That was not anticipated. We figured we could wear the same clothes for a couple of days and it wouldn't really matter. But the truth is, it's so dusty that you just get caked in dirt, you know, in one afternoon, and it's kind of gross.
And the boys like making dust angels.
And when you have kids, they're going to roll in it and run in it, and it's just going to go everywhere.
We take a shower, and then 10 minutes later, they're just dusty again.
We looked grubby. We really did. I don't think I've ever been so grubby in my life.
Right. And a lot of the national parks, like Zion, Capitol Reef, Bryce, they don't have showers. You have to go outside the park to take showers. Actually, Bryce did have showers. You had to pay $3 for 8 minutes or something. Yeah. And then their hours are really weird. Like, I think they close at like 5 p.m., the showers. I'm like, why do you do that?
They open at 10 a.m. and they close at 5 p.m. Exactly the time when you want to be out and about hiking, not taking a shower.
Right. So the state parks are so much
outfitted
equipped, I feel.
Yeah.
For showers, the facilities were nicer.
That's a little tip too. You might want to mix up your trip to having both national park and state park stays, just because the amenities in the state parks do seem to be better, especially in regards to showers and bathroom facilities.
Right. At Zion, right outside the park at Zion Outfitters, you could literally walk right outside from the campground and there was a shower there
but
and laundry
what
too.
Was it $8 for 5 minutes?
Yeah, it was kind of expensive.
It was
I forget what it was.
expensive.
I think it was $5 for 8 minutes, something like that.
No.
No, was it that? I don't think it was $8. Anyway,
Maybe it was $5 for 5 minutes, but it was a lot of money for a shower. I thought Bryce was bad at $3 for 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was grumbling. I'm like, man, I should have taken more showers at Bryce.
Yeah. Anyway, talking about water, very dry. Air is very dry. Everything's very dry. You don't feel that humidity like you do in the East Coast.
No humidity at all.
But so you need a lot of water. We were carrying about 8 gallons at any given time, and we were constantly filling them from campsite to campsite. I think every single campsite we stayed at had drinking water pumps, all along the campsites. So
it wasn't an issue obtaining drinking water, but you did have to remember to just constantly hydrate because it is very easy to get dehydrated in such dry and hot climates.
Yeah, we just kept refilling the gallon containers we bought from Walmart, but I don't know, going next time I saw some cool people having like 5-gallon drums that were kind of cool. It would have been a little easier to do that.
Also regarding the dryness, chapstick is a must-have, and lotion. Our skin got so cracked.
And we had bad hotel lotion. We needed good lotion.
I ended up buying good lotion.
Oh man, what a world of difference. Good lotion versus the bad lotion.
You don't want to go on this trip without lotion and chapstick.
Yeah.
Because literally our skin was not reacting well to the desert climate. Maybe if you live out there, your skin's more accustomed to it, and us coming from a very humid state, in New Jersey, it was a shock, but that's just a little tip there.
Yeah, and New Jersey, we kind of are like, ew, New Jersey, but going there, it's such an awesome landscape, Utah. All this red dirt, canyons, mountains, a lot of cool stuff, very different from New Jersey. But honestly, towards the end of our trip, we were missing the forests, the creeks,
the abundance of water.
Right. There's no grass like anywhere there. If you want grass, you need sprinklers. And we're just not used to that.
Scarce.
Right. And we're used to being able to jump in a lake, being able to jump in a creek. But it was hard to find. We brought swimming floaties and we didn't get to use them until we got to the hotel on our last day.
Honestly, packing swimsuits was a waste of space.
Well, the floaties was a waste of space. We ended up not only using that last day in Las Vegas because they had a pool in that casino hotel.
But there really was no. Moab had a nice river that we were able to wade into, but was
Mill
it worth?
Creek Falls, that was a cool place.
Yeah, beautiful area. But was it worth packing
the
towels and the swimsuits?
No,
I don't think it was.
Didn't need it.
Nope.
Unless your hotels are going to have it, I wouldn't. The only national park with water that we kind of went to, well, I guess Bryce had that, what was that called? The mold cave? Something like that. Mossy Cave.
There
was a creek through that. So there was a lot of creeks.
But it isn't a swimming creek.
Right.
It was a murky, muddy creek.
So nothing really swimming anywhere.
Yeah. Capitol Reef has a river running through it, but they don't want you to swim into it.
We kind of snuck into it anyway, but also we were just in our underwear because it was all the way tucked away.
Yeah, but yeah.
So what else did we talk? We talked laundry, showers, entertainment. So entertainment, when you're on the road, we didn't really have much. I think we brought a book, but we didn't even read books because we were putting the kids so late to bed that we just conked out, told stories. I did review some pictures with them from the day's journey. But on the plane, you did good. What did you do?
Well, we had ahead of time packed a bunch of different snacks that we knew the kids would really enjoy that we could dole out over the course of the 4 hours that we had, as well as a bunch of activities. Like we had little dollar store treats for the kids. Some were toys, some were puzzles. We had little mini Lego sets that the boys were very occupied building in the airplane. That occupied them at least an hour. We had drawing pads and sticker books and things like that. So every hour, half an hour, when they started to tire of the flight and not being able to move around, we pull out another new something or other they could explore, and that helps a great deal. I mean, they also watched some of the TV on our phones on the airplanes that they provide you with. You can, screen movies and so forth. But that, honestly, for kids, at least our kids, that wouldn't hold them for a 4-hour flight. Yeah. It'll hold them for an hour and a half or 2 hours max, but then they're going to get restless, and it's good for them to have lots of things to do with their hands. So we were doing that, and as far as the baby also, we had some little toys for her, but honestly what she enjoyed most was just all the different snacks. So having a lot of things handy to offer her was helpful. Driving on the road trip, again, we had similar things. We had puzzles, we had some question things that we did with them where we would read off questions, they would answer them. But one thing that is really great that the national parks do is they have the Junior Ranger program. And what that is they give you a booklet at the start of your visit, and in it has all this information about that particular national park, the wildlife there, the landscape, how to be good stewards of the natural environment. And it's fun little activities, puzzles, games, and so forth for the kids.
You get this from the visitor center. Any visitor center at the national parks will give you this.
Right, the visitor center or a ranger who's working at the visitor center. And once you complete it, there's a certain amount of activities that need to be completed in the booklet per your child's age group. Once you complete those activities, you bring it back to the rangers or the visitor center, and you're awarded a little wooden badge that's specific to that park. And you can start collecting these badges as you visit lots of different parks. So for our boys, that was super exciting, something that made them really eager to learn about that particular park, as well as to earn that badge and then go to the next park and earn the next badge. So it kind of made them excited for anticipating our next stop on our journey. And a lot of times our son was working on the booklets during the drives between the parks.
Yeah. And otherwise we did audiobooks and podcasts, and that entertained them for sure.
Yeah.
What was also great about the Ranger booklets, though, is like I remember in Bryce, at least, they had like a requirement to do a certain amount of hiking miles. Mm-hmm. And okay, so it was like an extra credit thing. Like you'd get a certificate or a prize at the visitor center if you did that extra bit. And that really encouraged him to, let's go hiking. Because sometimes they would grumble, like, oh, another hike. We kind of limited it to like 2 hikes a day. And we didn't go over 2 miles, maybe over 3 miles.
We didn't go over 5.
Over 5.
There were a few days where we did a couple 2-mile hikes in the same day.
Right. But not more than like 3 miles at a time.
Right.
And I think that was good. We have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old. 1-year-old was strapped to us pretty much every hike we did in an Ergo baby regular carrier.
But the 4-year-old and 6-year-old, they did all the walking themselves.
They're on their own.
We really didn't carry them much at all.
Right. Even through like the Narrows at Zion, just trudging through the water, they were doing themselves.
I mean, that's not a 0 to 100 thing either. We are a very active family, and we do a lot of hiking just in general back home anyway. So our kids are used to, being asked to go on walks and hikes, and it doesn't, faze them. So we knew that they could handle this. But it's definitely something you have to gauge based on your child's ability, and if you think they can handle it. You wouldn't want to set out on a 2-mile hike only to have a meltdown halfway through. So something to work up to if that's what you want to do. If you want to hit these hikes, start hiking back at home and see how your kids, what their threshold is. Our kids' threshold is easily 2 miles. They have no problem at all. When you start to get 3 or 4 miles, then they start to get kind of grumpy about the distance.
Right. Yeah, so I think anything else? Packing out. Oh, so packing out was a little interesting since we had to do it 8 times, put away the tent. What we ended up doing, we brought a huge duffel bag, and that was great because, instead of having to, individually bag up all the sleeping bags, and which we did, we put but we packed it all into the big duffel bag, and we took that in and out of the tent every time we moved, and that was very easy to keep all the camping mats, sleeping bags, headlamps, everything we kind of needed in the tent.
in this one big
bag,
bag, which also was our carry-on. We used that as
Right.
the carry-on for all the camping gear.
Right. So as long as it's like under 50 pounds and, all the
Certain
dimensions
size
are under
dimension.
60 inches, it worked out. And I think it was like right at 60 inches if you do the length, width, and height. One really cool thing that happened was we made some friends on our camping trip. So they had like similar age kids, and we went hiking with them a couple times.
We met them on one of the trails, and we're like, hey, you want to hike together? And it was just really awesome because they were doing a similar journey to us. So we met one at Kodachrome State Park.
And they were going to Bryce.
Where we were also headed. So we could actually meet up with them at Bryce and camp near each other. And that was just so much fun for the kids.
Yeah.
And for us, too, to connect with another family going through the same experience.
And then we met another family. They had 4 kids. They were like days apart from our kids, too.
And they were on a 6-week camping adventure.
And they had just had a baby. So they
2
were just
months
carrying around
before.
this infant. It's a really cool family. Trying to get them on the podcast. So if you're listening, get on the podcast so we can do the show about your crazy journey. Because they were all over the place. They were 6 weeks on the road.
That's a lot of time to be camping. And
3 times longer than us.
so ambitious. I mean, we thought 14 days was hardcore. And then we met them and we're like, whoa, respect.
Yeah. Yeah, not easy to tent every day.
Right.
Yeah, especially when you're moving in and out of parks all the time. Like, the days when we didn't have to pack out that tent was like, yes. I mean, I feel like we got it down to like 30, 40 minutes we could pack out.
But it is tiring. I
is.
mean, if I were to say anything about our trip, perhaps extending it even longer than we had to allow more days stationary at these parks would have made it more easygoing.
Right.
Because it was ambitious to go to all these stops and squeeze it all within 14 days in a camp. If you were in a camper where you're just, you can keep everything relatively set up and just move on when you're ready, that's a different story. But definitely with a tent, something to consider. The longer you stay in one place, the more calm it is. Otherwise, you're doing a lot of setting up and breaking down.
Right.
But yeah, still, it was, we managed it, and it was a way to experience this incredible part of our country and these beautiful parks without having to spend a ridiculous amount of money doing it.
Right,
Camping is very economical.
Average, I'd say, is like $30 a night for the campsites.
And your food, you can make
Grocery
it
shopping.
more or less expensive depending on how you choose to eat and shop on your trip.
Right. Yeah, grocery shopping, I do want to touch on that a little bit. Zion had their own grocery store kind of right there. Grand Canyons did as well. But some of the other national parks, Capitol Reef,
Bryce.
I guess Mesa Verde had shopping pretty close to it. But some of them, it's harder
state
to
parks, Goblin Valley.
It's harder to find grocery stores, so you got to think about that. It was good we had a cooler so we could go to some of the more populated areas, stock up, and then go to the campground.
Yeah, you definitely want to make sure ahead of time you know where you're going to get your provisions, because some of these areas are pretty remote. And if you didn't think that through, you could end up messing up like we did when we went to Goblin Valley. And
right. Goblin Valley was really the only one, actually, come to think of it. Everywhere else, maybe you had to drive 10 minutes away to a shopping center. Yeah. But Goblin Valley was the bad one.
Yes.
Yeah. Kodachrome, Singletree, Canyonlands. All those had decent shopping.
Capitol Reef had a nice town of Torrey, not far from it, and they had a great little all-encompassing deli, supermarket, laundromat, you name it, in this one little general store. But it had everything you needed. So yeah, we weren't without provisions there. And Bryce also had some pretty good shopping centers just outside of it too. So you'll be okay. But if you're going to consider Goblin Valley, definitely bring food with you there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, I want to mention another thing. A lot of these places, you're driving for hours between them. it's going through very remote mountainous areas, and there isn't great reception.
Right.
So sometimes our GPS didn't even work. We luckily had guidebooks with us. I highly recommend bringing maps and bringing guidebooks with you because, yeah, if we had been relying on our GPS, we would have been so lost.
Right. Towards the middle of the trip, I finally downloaded all the maps, the Google Maps. In Google Maps, you can download certain areas. So I just started downloading all the areas we were going to because I'm sick of losing reception and not knowing where we're going.
Like, I think we got to head down this road for another hour and a half. I hope we're right.
But the guidebooks were great too. We rented them from the library. I think we ruined one of them, but we got the guidebooks in the library and we could kind of see what is like the highlight trails and do that research, while we were offline.
Mm-hmm. Right. So just little tips there too.
Yeah, most of the campsites I feel like did not have service.
No, it was pretty
Zion
sparse.
had decent service, and Grand Canyons had decent service, but other than that, I feel like we really didn't have much service.
Very spotty.
Yeah. 14 days backpacking. We get back to Vegas, and I feel like we both kind of had like culture shock, like. What are with these people? Like, when we were camping back to back, everyone was smiling and happy and,
fit and healthy minded.
And then you go to Las Vegas and everything like consumption and I don't know. It was such a
stark difference in
lifestyles.
Yeah.
And, you didn't get that everyone's just smiling at you. It's different. Everyone's like frowning at you.
Yeah.
So it was really weird, like going from that dirtbag lifestyle to this like hotel casino lifestyle and just seeing that disparity.
We only stayed one night, but we were like, take us home. We got to get out of here.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I mean, Las Vegas is a very flashy place.
Right.
And you're being bombarded with all this stimulus all around you, these lights and these advertisements and these sounds, and it just was overwhelming after having spent over 2 weeks just in the pure nature, where you hear the crickets and see the stars at night and nothing else. So
but yeah, I feel like this trip really gave us kind of a different perspective, even like I was saying, just from our home state,
appreciating what we
right
have more.
I feel like we never appreciated New Jersey as much as we do now.
I have never appreciated humidity in my life, and now I'm like, you know what, it's a necessary evil, and I honestly am happy to have it because the dryness out there was brutal, and I would rather be in muggy, humid climate.
I like dryness, but I miss the water. I love having a creek nearby, a lake nearby, and now I'm so much more grateful knowing we have those and knowing that we live in a place with such abundance of water.
And to have black dirt and grass where you're not getting coated in red dust all day long. That's a blessing too. Like, our kids play and they can wear the same thing tomorrow that they wore today because they're not filthy. They were just playing in the grass versus rolling in the dust. So yeah, we learned to appreciate what we have so much more, and also to just really appreciate the beautiful variety that this amazing country has in all the different regions. Utah is spectacular. Highly recommend it. I recommend all these national parks for all the reasons that they are being preserved as national parks. They truly are beautiful pieces of American landscape. So if you can make this trip, go for it. I will say this. I don't think a camping journey like this with young children is for everybody. You have to know your family and know what they can handle. It was ambitious and it was a lot even on our family, and we are regular campers and we are regular hikers.
Well, okay, I feel like the kids really enjoyed it. Like, I don't feel like there was... But, okay, towards the end, everyone was like, yeah, I'm excited to go home, but I don't feel like we ever had, like, I need to get out of here, or I need to go back home. There was none of that.
But that's also our family's dynamic naturally. If you are not already acclimated to this kind of rugged lifestyle, it's quite an adjustment. So you may want to practice taking your family on a few smaller, closer to home camping adventures and seeing how they like it and how they do with, going on hikes for 4 hours out of a day and then cooking a meal on a fire and going to bed in a tent and a sleeping bag. Not for everybody, but it can be done. You just got to know your family and know your family's limitations.
Why don't we talk about hardships a little bit? So I'd say like the hardest thing for us was Kaylee, and putting, she's only like 15 months at that point, and just putting her down to sleep was a bit difficult.
Right.
Especially because you're surrounded by other campers in these campgrounds.
It's a little nerve-wracking because you don't want to be that person when everyone else is trying to sleep and there's a baby who won't stop crying. Which did happen like 2 nights. Yeah, but overall, she did really well. Mm-hmm. You just got to find what makes them comfortable. She has this particular sleep sack that she sleeps in at home, so it's kind of comforting to her. So that was a must-have on the trip. Definitely helped with her sleep on the trip. Also, in a tent, it's not as dark as it is in her room normally. We have like blackout curtains. So,
and we have a sound machine going with white noise.
Can't hear anything like other campers chatting in the next site over. So that took a little bit of an adjustment for her. It was some bit of a challenge. We did end up propping a blanket over part of her little pop-up bed just to darken it so that it felt more dark at night to put her to sleep, because a lot of times 8 p.m. or 8:30 when she really needs to be asleep, it was still pretty light out. So that's something to think about too. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd say everything went pretty smoothly. It was just a bit tiring towards the end. We were like ready to go home. I think that was a good length. Maybe it would have been a little more relaxing if we weren't picking up and going, so maybe a longer trip would have actually been a little more relaxing. But overall, I think it was a great trip. Mm-hmm. Something the kids are going to remember forever. We kept telling the kids we'll be back in 5 years because there was all these things that we didn't get to do or they weren't old enough to do, like mountain biking through some of those slick rock trails and stuff. I can't wait to do that with them someday.
Or the mule and donkey rides, or the horseback rides through a lot of these national parks. They have these really great rides you can take, but most of them require the children to be at least 7 years old. Right. So that was off the list for us.
So we kept telling them in 5 years we'll come back, and they're excited for that to happen.
Right.
Yeah. So, we hope you guys enjoyed this podcast, this video, and if you've been enjoying the clips, watching those, I am going to make another YouTube video, so be on the lookout for that. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/famvestor, and you'll see that coming out in a week or two. And it'll be a lot more detailed about our whole entire trip. It's going to be like an hour and 20 minutes, but it'll be very detailed about how you could plan your own Grand Circle adventure and great things that we did, things to watch out for, things not to do, and places to go check out. So with that, wish you guys the best of luck. Godspeed.